In the Godswood of Winterfell, Bran Stark skin changes into a group of ravens, watching as the army of the dead marches towards Eastwatch by the sea. The Night King spots him and disperses the birds, disrupting the connection, causing Bran to order Maester Wolkin to send ravens, warning of the approaching danger. Inside the castle, Sansa holds court with the Bannermen of the North, with Arya watching from the back. Arya becomes upset after seeing the men speaking badly of Jon Snow and proclaiming their admiration for Sansa, who stayed to rule the North, while Jon left them and went south. Sansa appears to be enjoying their compliments and does not chastise the men for speaking ill of their king. And so Arya later confronts her, implying that rather than serving Jon, she is scheming to get what she really wants. Although Sansa attempts to deny it, Arya does not believe her, stating that she is currying favor with the Bannermen, so they will be loyal to her if Jon does not return. Later, Arya follows Littlefinger around Winterfell, watching as he speaks to informants, confers with the two noble lords who supported Sansa during the meeting, and as he speaks with Maester Wolkin, receiving a letter and ensuring that no other copies exist. Littlefinger then enters his chamber and leaves moments later, only for Arya to pick the lock and search for the letter. She finds it under his mattress and learns that it was written by Sansa years earlier when their father was arrested. A letter she was pressured to write by the Lannisters, which states that Robert is dead and their father had betrayed the new king, then asking that Robb swear fealty to Joffrey. Arya, having read the message, leaves the room. However, now she is being watched by Littlefinger, indicating that he knew he was being followed, possibly leaving the letter to be discovered to sow dissension between Sansa and Arya. Following her victory in the Second Field of Fire, the Dothraki army of Queen Daenerys Targaryen gathered the surviving Lannister and Tarly soldiers, offering them the choice of bending the knee or execution. Some few immediately chose to bend the knee, but many others refused. After an intimidating roar by Drogon, more soldiers submit, but still many do not. Among those refusing are Randyll Tarly and his son Dickon. Lord Tarly is recognized and brought forward to speak with the Queen, explaining that he is pledged to Cersei, believing her claim to the throne of Westeros more legitimate than Daenerys, who was raised in foreign lands, has a foreign army, and has no more ties to the land. He is willing to die honorably, refusing even the suggestion of joining the Night's Watch, which Tyrion tries to offer as an alternative. Watching his father being taken away, Dickon could not stay silent, and made his identity known to the Queen, demanding that if his father is to be executed, he must die as well. Randyll clearly did not want his son to die, even indicating his approval for Dickon to bend the knee, but in the end the boy proved to be the honorable and dutiful son he always wanted, and they died together, consumed by dragonfire. The last of the soldiers standing now kneel, and Daenerys flies back to Dragonstone, landing near King Jon Snow atop a cliff. To her surprise, he bravely reaches out a hand and touches the dragon, who looks back at him and seems to sense Jon is a friend. Afterwards, the Dothraki brings her Jorah Mormont, who just arrived on the island, and Daenerys greets him warmly, taking him back into her service. He is also introduced to Jon Snow, who mentions that he served under his father, Jeor Mormont. Inside the throne room, Varys and Tyrion discuss their discomfort at the actions of their queen, before moving on to speak of a letter they received for Jon Snow, providing more troubling information. When they present it to the king in the north, he is shocked to learn that Arya and Bran are alive, but is worried about the army marching south, and states he must return to the north immediately. Daenerys says she cannot support his cause with Cersei Lannister in King's Landing, and so Tyrion suggests a plan. They must arrange a cessation of hostilities between Daenerys and Cersei so the entire realm can focus on the threat beyond the wall. In order to convince Cersei, they will need proof, and so must capture one of the undead soldiers in the army of the White Walkers and bring it south for all to see. Jorah Mormont volunteers to go capture the creature, but Jon knows he won't make it on his own, and so decides to lead the mission. In order to speak with Cersei, Davos will smuggle Tyrion into the capital, where he will arrange a meeting with his brother Jaime, who will relay the message. Jaime Lannister, who was nearly killed by Drogon in the Field of Fire, was saved at the last moment by Bronn, who then dragged him out of the water. Making their way back to King's Landing, Jaime informs Cersei of all he saw and the gravity of their situation. Cersei seems to understand their peril, but sees the choices as fight and die or submit and die, choosing to fight. She is also told of Tyrion's innocence regarding the death of Joffrey, learning that it was Lady Olenna behind the assassination. Once arrived in the capital, Davos and Tyrion go their separate ways. Tyrion sets up a meeting with Jaime through his old friend Bronn, and while they are not on friendly terms, they discuss an armistice so they might turn their attention to the threat beyond the wall. Jaime brings the information to Cersei, who is already aware of his meeting with Tyrion, claiming to have allowed it to take place because she sees the value in a temporary ceasefire, which gives them time to build up their forces and complete their victory in the future. Cersei also reveals that she is pregnant, and will announce to the whole world that Jaime is the father, no longer concerned about the opinions of others. Meanwhile, Davos searches through the streets of King's Landing until finding Gendry, the bastard son of Robert Baratheon, working as a smith in the Street of Steel. Gendry says that he hates living in the capital, crafting weapons for the family that murdered his father. When Davos asks him to come to Dragonstone, Gendry happily agrees, bringing with him a warhammer reminiscent of the one wielded by his father, Robert Baratheon. Davos, Tyrion, and Gendry then return to Dragonstone, where Jon Snow meets Robert Baratheon's last known living son for the first time. Although Davos tries to hide his identity, Gendry immediately reveals himself, knowing that Jon's father, Eddard Stark, was best friends with his own father, and that if they trusted each other, the sons should as well. Jon welcomes him and allows him to join their party headed north. Daenerys then comes down to the shore and says goodbye to Jorah and Jon, who along with Gendry and Davos make their way to Eastwatch by the sea. In the citadel of Old Town, while attending to his duties, Sam Tarly overhears a conversation by a group of maesters speaking about a crippled boy in the north who claims an army of the dead is marching south towards the wall. Sam interrupts them to recount that he was the one who let Bran Stark through the wall, where he somehow survived for years. But the maesters are skeptical of the claim, suggesting it may be a ploy by the Dragon Queen to lure the armies of Westeros away from the south. Samwell pleads with them, saying that the boy is telling the truth, and that he has personally seen the army of the dead. The Archmaester assures him they will investigate the matter and come to the truth of it, but Sam is not convinced and tries to argue further before being dismissed. Sam, who has not yet heard of his father and brother's deaths, returns to his duties but remains upset all day, unleashing a burst of anger on Gilly in their room later that night. Frustrated by the indifference and inaction of the maesters, he does not pay attention to Gilly, who mentions that High Septon Maynard, author of the book she's reading, recorded the annulment of the marriage of Prince Rhaegar so he might marry another in a secret ceremony in Dorne. This is in reference to Rhaegar Targaryen, son of the Mad King, who abandoned his wife and children to run away with Lyanna Stark, apparently annulling his previous relationship to be with the northern girl who later gave birth to Jon Snow. Sam then decides he's had enough and steals a number of important books before packing up his family and leaving the Citadel. Arriving at Eastwatch by the sea, Jon Snow meets with Tormund Giantsbane to discuss their mission north of the Wall. Tormund then reveals that another group of travelers recently arrived, also wanting to travel north, and so they go to the cells where Beric Dondarrion, Thoros of Myr, and Sandor Clegane await them. Beric claims that the Lord of Light has sent them on this mission, and although many of the men have history and dislike each other, Jon decides they must work together. Jon Snow, king in the north, then gathers his companions and heads out beyond the wall to capture an undead wight. Their quest is reminiscent of the story concerning the previous Long Night, when the last hero of Westeros ventured north with a sword, a horse, a wolf, and a dozen companions on a mission that would ultimately help save humanity and defeat the White Walkers. A special thanks to all those who contribute to Civilization X, like Tormus Woods Whisper, Ryanon, and Joey Lady Phoenician. If you'd like to help the channel with a monthly donation, click on the Patreon link, and please be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to see more.